What's up, guys? This is Carlos. Welcome to my channel, Lowe's Car 50. Today we're going to be talking about the BC Racing coilovers that I installed in this car. I installed them about, I'd say, close to 3 months now. They've been on the car, and I just want to touch a few things about these coilovers from my personal experience with these. There are many pros, just a few cons, but for the most part, I would rate these as definitely one of the nicest mods I've done to this car. The benefit about coilovers is you can adjust your ride height however you like. So the bad thing about springs is when you buy them, that's pretty much your car's gonna sit the way it sits with those springs. You can't adjust it if you need to go a little bit higher in the rear, a little lower in the front. You really can't do much. I mean, the only thing you do is, like on these cars at least, is mess with the isolators. But with coilovers, you can set them at any given time down the road. If you want to go lower, you want to lift it up, whatever you want to do. So it's really nice. So as you guys know, my car recently installed a fresh set of CCW Classics, and with some really meaty tires in the back, with R888s, 335s. So I've been having a lot of issues with those tires personally. They're a really wide tire to begin with. So unfortunately, I've been having some rubbing issues, and that's with me having rolled fenders. So what I had to do was mess with the adjustment of the rear a lot. I probably had to adjust the rear, I don't know, 4 or 5 times to get the height just right to where the car would stop rubbing. And if it wasn't for having coilovers, there's just no way in the world I would have been to do that with springs. So that's probably one of the nicest things that I love about these, is that you can adjust them, and it's a given, right? I mean, any car with coilovers, it's gonna be like that. As far as the comfort and the drivability and how these feel, I'd say these are really, really one of the nicest suspension upgrades I've done to my car. I can't speak for Maximum Motorsports or like UPR or any other coilover company out there, because I've never really driven a car with one of those on. But if you're looking for a set that won't really break the bank, and you're just wanting it more for like the adjustability of the ride height and casual driving, even some light track time too, right? Like autocross, something like that, I'd say you cannot go wrong with these BC Racing coilovers. And I will add that these coilovers make your car feel a lot tighter at the steering. So that's like something, if you're looking into having more of a tighter steering feeling for, like, you know, taking out on the track or whatever, or just you want the car to feel more like that handles more properly. These coilovers will help do that too. Man, my hand actually slipped on third. That's crazy. All right. But spinning for days. R888s in the rear, 335s. My car makes about 640 to the wheel, 550 torque. And even like that, it still slides with these tires. These cars are crazy torque monsters. Man, freaking putting a smile on my face, man. That's what it's about. This car rides really, really smooth. I felt like with the H&R race springs that I had, my car was more stiff, like a little more, it wasn't as comfortable. And it didn't ride bad, but with these BC Racing coilovers, it rides really, really smooth. With any other like suspension upgrade you do with springs, coilovers, I mean, you're not gonna feel the car ride stock ever. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, you're replacing it with aftermarket parts. But this car with the BC Racing coilovers definitely feels really great, really smooth. And my car, I mean, for me, I like just taking it out on the weekends, doing casual driving on the highway, just taking it down, you know, Main Street, you know, just stuff like that, right? So for me, these coilovers were a perfect fit. Now let's get into the cons. Again, I don't have personal experience with other brands out there, but it seems like with other brands, it's a little bit easier to adjust the coilovers on these 0304 Cobras. Now with the BC Racing, it is a little bit more difficult. I'm going to drop a few clips, but I would just quickly say that for the rear, there was no other way to get around adjusting the spring perch other than having to drop the IRS. It really sucks, but after you do it once or twice, I mean, you get really fast at it. But really, that's like the only easiest way to do it, is to adjust that spring perch by doing that. So now I'll drop in a few clips of how you adjust the fronts and the rears right here. So when it comes to adjusting the height on the front coilovers, the way to adjust it is that you have to remove the two nuts and bolts that hold your coilover onto the knuckle. And then you have to turn this bottom portion of the coilover itself, the body mount. You have to move that either up or down. To adjust it up, basically you have to loosen it to increase the gap from here to go higher, and to drop it you have to tighten it, which will decrease the height from this part to here shorter. And now that's the way how you do it with the BC Racing coilovers. I'm not sure about others. Now there is a preload set from this part to the top that you shouldn't touch. You should leave it as is. That's the setting that comes in the instructions. So once you have that set properly, leave that alone. You don't adjust it. Technically you could drop the car by adjusting this, but your preload would be incorrect, which would cause I don't know, probably just a bad ride. And unnecessary noises and whatnot, I don't know. But the way to adjust it is by the bottom body of this tower of the coilover. That's how you would do it. So moving on to the rear, this is probably like the most difficult part of adjusting the rear on this setup of the BC Racing coilover system. I talked to BC. They said that the way to do it is by basically freeing your lower control arm bolt, which is down here, letting it drop, taking off the bolt that holds your coilover or the shock, and then just kind of letting it fall. But still, that's not enough to release tension on this spring perch. So honestly, the only way around it, and I've seen a few other people talk about it too, is they have to loosen the IRS and basically drop it just enough to where you can slide in and out the spring, and then by hand you can adjust these rings for the perch. That's like the only main downside that I see to all of this, but after you do it once or twice, like, you get the hang of it, and it's like a really quick, like 30-minute job. It's not that big of a deal. I don't know how other coilover systems are. For example, Maximum Motorsports, I think they have just a one-piece design similar to what on the front is. So I think it's easier to adjust, but in this case, you're limited to this inside of the fender of the car, and then just the preload that's set, it's just too tight to loosen these rings. So there you have it. That's pretty much the only downside that I consider it a downside with these coilovers. It's just the way how you had to adjust these. But it's not the end of the world, really. I think it's a fantastic setup, and I will speak for this. Like, I'm gonna drop a picture of my alignment. So these coilovers come with the camber adjustment plates for the fronts, no caster adjustment. So that kind of had me worried. But after taking the car to alignment shop, and after looking at these results from the alignment, you can just tell that the caster alignment is pretty much dead on perfect. So that says a lot about this company. I mean, about this setup, right? That you don't have to have caster camber plates or camber adjustment with these, because they have it nailed down to where you don't need them. So if you're worried about that, if you've thought about that, now you know. You don't have to worry about it. It's pretty much set, perfect. And the camber adjustment is really cool too. Let's not forget about the damper adjustment. You can put it on the soft settings or more towards the hard settings, depending on your driving style. For me personally, in the fronts, I have it a little bit closer to, I'd say 75% closer to the harder settings. And the rear, I have it completely at the hardest setting you can go. Because of the rubbing issue that I've had, I don't want my car to be too soft in the rear because I don't want to be rubbing. So personally, that's what I did. I know quite a few of you guys have been asking me about these coilovers, how I like them, and honestly, I like them a lot. If you're thinking about it, you know, your intentions are to drive the car like me, I just say just go for it, right? I mean, one of the best suspension upgrades you can do to any car is having coilovers. So at that, I think I will conclude this video. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned for more to come. Lowe's Car 50 out.